Hi guys, so this will be my review of Haikyuu chapter 220. I didn't write that down. 2021 I think we're at now. I should really know it at this point. But the chapter is called The Wall Once More, and of course it refers to the ending of the chapter where we meet Dateko again. But let's not get into that because I'm gonna go through this chronologically. But we basically start off exactly where we left off with Kageyama telling Hinata that his jumps are not the best kinds of jump. And Kageyama goes on to trying his best at Hinata language, while Hinata just kind of looks at him and is like, the onomatopoeias that he uses they're tragic. So apparently Hinata has a standard for the words that he uses whenever he uses a language and then no one else but him, and sometimes Kageyama understands. Now we know. I found that really funny, it really cracked me up, so yeah. Kageyama then goes on to explaining that Hinata's jumps are actually quite good, and even if he doesn't improve like overnight, they'll still be useful, but he needs to know that there is still room for him to improve, so he's good now, he could be excellent should he learn how to jump correctly. This is of course not a transition that Kageyama expects him to make just like that, which is why he's like, okay, I'm not saying you're terrible, I'm just saying you could be better. Because if we take Hinata's like nervousness from the first part of the series where he was just super nervous, I think Kageyama's still slightly scared that things like that might happen if he just tells Hinata that you are useless, you can't do anything. So yeah, I think that's why he's like, okay, just calm down, you're not terrible. Let's move on. They basically then go on to like figuring out how Hinata jumps normally so that they can figure out how he should change that. And Hinata's just kind of like, I don't know, like I put the weight in my legs, I guess, so I can jump, and Kageyama just freaks out and is just like, you're not even thinking when you're jumping, no wonder you're not that good. And they kind of just get heated up and start yelling at each other for no real reason. But then we get some kind of detailed explanation of how exactly a good jump works, so like where you should put the weight on your body and how you should like use the momentum from your run up to jump upwards and whatever. Not really important for us, but for Hinata it is. We then cut to a scene with the third years where Daichi and Asahi are kind of talking about like, okay, so these people, Kageyama and Hinata were like, we're just gonna use a little bit more time, but Asahi's just like, you know that means that they won't stop unless you tell them to stop, right? Like, they are super passionate, and they go into the locker room and Suga's there, and he says that that Kageyama and Hinata, they really are amazing because they just came back from their exhausting training camps and they are already training past after hours, so that just goes to show how passionate they are about volleyball. But Asahi then points out that ever since Kageyama came back from his training camp, he's had this kind of troubled look on his face, and I will come back to that by the end of this chapter where I have some insight on this. But we then cut back to Kageyama and Hinata training, and we see Kageyama set up a toss, and then we have Hinata just kind of spacing out a little bit, just thinking about how amazing Kageyama's tosses are. And I think it's like, it kind of occurs to him at this moment just how special Kageyama is, because now he's starting to like observe other setters, so he's like, oh my god, look at how amazing Kageyama is compared to these people. Of course, the setters that were at his training camp were like, some of them were noobs like Koganewa, and some of them were probably quite good, but like compared to Kageyama, who's just this setter genius, they weren't of course all that impressive, especially if we compare them to the setters that were obviously at Kageyama's camp where they were all elite players. So yeah, it's a really nice moment for Hinata just kind of acknowledging that yeah, Kageyama is amazing. But Kageyama then yells at him because if you just space out and don't think, your jumps will never reach the height that they are supposed to, and Hinata, I think he takes the ball to the face or something, or he misses, but either way he doesn't succeed. And Kageyama then again explains like you should focus your weight in like the ball of your feet and then use the momentum, jump upwards, whatever, and he sets a new ball and we have Hinata running up using the theory, and just before we think that he might succeed, Daichi comes along and is just like, you should stop training because they should really not overwork themselves. And then I guess we cut to the next day. It's not really specified, but I think that it's the next day, and we have like the whole Karasuno team together. And we see them training, and we have Yachi and Shimizu on the sidelines, and Yachi's like, I've been noticing that ever since Hinata came back from this training camp, sometimes he just falls that silent, and of course we as the readers know that it's because Hinata is observing the other players, as he's been doing the entire week where he was the ball boy. And he kind of calls out Tsuki because he's like, when we were at the training camp, I feel like you hit the ball at a higher point. But Tsukishima's just kind of like, well, I'm doing my best here. I'm jumping as high as I can, and like Hinata and Tsuki don't talk about it after that, but Kageyama kind of notices because of course he's the setter. So if Tsukishima is doing worse because he just changed setter, then obviously Kageyama needs to change accordingly, even if he and Tsukishima aren't really on wavelength. And yeah, I think another kind of like barrier that Kageyama has, especially with Tsuki, is that he's just not talkative. He doesn't really talk to people other than Hinata and sometimes other people. But like he needs to be able to communicate with these people, especially Tsukishima, because the relationship between a setter and a middle blocker is really important. I think that was established, whatever. It must have been the first season when they fought Aoba Josei, like how, I mean, of course a wing spiker is like usually the person who spikes, but a middle blocker and a setter should have this special kind of communication or something of that sort. It was said at some point. I'm not making this up. So we cut to what I presume is after practice, where Karasuno is now on their way to Dateko, and we have this really touching scene where Nishinoya just kind of goes up to Asahi and asks him if he's still afraid of them, because we know that Asahi has this trauma is a big word, but yeah, he's just not very fond of Dateko, and he has this really reassuring smile, and he just says that right now the best opponent they could think of is Dateko, so he's grateful for this match. And the smile Nishinoya has is very heartwarming because they've been through a lot, these two. Yeah, so that's cute. Also, Asahi mentions that he has some new techniques that he wants to try out, so I'm interested in seeing that because Asahi is a really interesting player, I feel like. I really enjoy seeing him play, maybe even more so than I enjoy Hinata. I don't know why, Asahi's just really, I really love him. I think the player that I love to see play the most is Nishinoya, because he has such a unique job, and he's just very good at what he's doing, yet he has these quirky things, and I just really love seeing Nishinoya play, especially in the anime. It's very, very nicely done. We then cut to Dateko, where Karasuno has just arrived, and they bow and are like, thank you for this match, or whatever they say. And we have this really cute scene where first Hinata is very excitedly greeting Koganewa, because of course they've become a little closer during this training camp. And then the next panel we have Hinata and Aone being super polite when they greet each other, and like their friendship is just so amazing because it's just based around this admiration they have for each other, and they're just super polite and never really speak to each other, but it's so amazing. And I was just like, when I saw that panel, I was just smiling for like 5 minutes and then turning the page. I loved that moment. It was perfect. So before the match actually starts, we have this one page where we first have Tanaka saying that it'd be really cool if we could use this match to steal some of the techniques that Dateko uses. And their coach is like, well, that's all good, but you need to remember we don't actually have time for you to learn new techniques. So what we really need to focus on in this match is how you deal with teams who are good at blocking, because they'll undoubtedly, when they get to the main spring tournament, meet teams that have really good blockers. And that's gonna be like really interesting because, as I said in my last review, I think it was, Karasuno is very much still a team that is developing who they are. They don't really have a style. And if we go back to the Wakunan match, I think it is, their coach specifically said that Karasuno has a great amount of trouble with teams who are very smart, and they very quickly figure out how to deal with Karasuno and all their weird attacks. Especially when the people like think and are like, okay, so this is the weird duo, and they have this weird quick but we can deal with it in this way. Like, that's the kind of teams that Karasuno has a lot of problems with, and they have a hard time overcoming them. And it would be really interesting if they found like a team like that not only knew how to deal with their attacks, but then at the same time could just like block them out, so even the attacks that usually get through blocks are then received or blocked. So they need to figure out how to get past that wall as it is. But then the match starts. We first have the lineup, which is kind of the usual lineup for Karasuno. So we have Hinata, Kageyama, Tsukishima, Nishinoya, Daichi, Tanaka, and Asahi, I think I forgot to mention. And the setup for Dateko is the same that they used against Aoba Josai, if I don't, if I remember correctly. But the main members, of course, is there Kachun what's his name again? Futakuchi and Aone and Koganewa, who are like the three characters I think we've been focused on, as well as the Libero, whose name I've forgotten right now. But yeah, those characters are like the ones that we should probably look out for in the match. Or in general, just them as a team, because they are a team of tall players who are good with their read blocks, or whatever they're called. But basically, the match starts, and we have a really great scene where it kind of looks like Kageyama is going to set the ball to Hinata. And we have, I think it's Koganewa who says like, whoa, Hinata's just really quick and it would be really hard to block this perfectly. And it looks like he's going to block Hinata, but then Kageyama sets the ball to Asahi in a back attack, yet the Dateko blockers are so quickly reacting that they manage to block it, and yeah, they block it and the ball falls to the ground and Nishinoya can't save it. So that's the first point to Dateko, and it's a very, very great scene. I really like the artwork that goes into drawing the actual iron wall when they block things. I think that's a really smart a really smart way of like portraying what it's like to get blocked, because it's like, okay, there's just this wall and I can't really, what can I do? I can't go through it. How would I do that? So I really like that. Then we have a few comments about how like Dateko has kind of really changed since they last played them, and they probably become a lot better now. And I even think that when we first met Dateko, the third years that then left the club because the Inter High was their last game or tournament, they even said like that their third years were like duds, so their power really comes from the second and first year. So now that the third years are gone, their team is not only stronger, but they have had these 6 months since the Inter High to develop their skills and function as a team. So we're definitely gonna see a very different Dateko and a much stronger Dateko in this practice match. And I do think that Karasuno will lose because it's a practice match, so it would make sense for them to lose. Also, you gain more from losing, I guess. And it would just be like a great wake-up call for some of them. It would be nice if they won as well, but I feel like Dateko needs a win since they've never won a match like on screen. And it's sad if they lose one more time. Then what's interesting about this chapter is the ending, because in the end we have the coach kind of saying that, okay, so they've improved a lot, and the one person that this is gonna be really hard on is Kageyama, because the setter is the person who ultimately makes the choice of where the attack is and how to attack, because he sets the ball to whatever player he thinks has the best chance of getting through the blockers. But here's the thing. Do you remember how I think it was Mia from the training camp called Kageyama little goody two-shoes? I think this is where the problem occurs, because if the bloggers can predict Kageyama, if they can always say, okay, Kageyama will probably see this as the best option, then they can just like block that person. And I think Kageyama will be okay. He'll realize that his way of playing is way too safe. There's nothing. He's kind of lost his edge after he's become so much of a team player. He's lost his individuality. And while it's all good that he's part of the team and that the team comes first and all that stuff, he is a leading player. He needs to make decisions that can, like, catch the blockers off guard, because if he can't do that, then they will get blocked every single time. And that's not good. So I think again, the chapter is of course called The Wall once again, but I think that it not only refers to the fact that Dateko are now facing them again, I think it's the fact that now Kageyama is... What's that? There was a bug flying in front of me. But I think it also refers to the fact that Kageyama is now at a place where he once again in his life has reached the point where he's like, okay, what do I do with my playing style? Because obviously something about the way I'm doing things now is not right. Yeah, that's gonna be really interesting. I think a lot of other players will feel this way because they'll be like, okay, we don't actually know how to deal with these bloggers. But I think for Kageyama especially, this is gonna be like an arc where he's gonna think about how what his role in the team is, because now he's the setter, so he works according to how the team needs him to work. Very much the opposite way of how he dictated to his team before. I've said this before, but in case there are any new viewers or anything. But yeah, I think that's definitely a wall for Kageyama to overcome. I think maybe that's all I have to say about this chapter. So yeah, if you liked anything that I had to say, please leave a thumbs up on the video and leave in the comments below what you thought of this chapter. All your thoughts are much appreciated, and I really like reading your comments and responding to them and all that. And subscribe to me if you want to see more of me. I do reviews of obviously Haikyuu and One Piece, Shokugeki no Soma, and from this week also Boku no Hero Academia and the anime of One Piece. So if you're into any of those, you can subscribe to me, and until next time, bye!